I have to say, just in the city or the.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm recording now.
We are at noon, so I will.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not really, I volunteer a lot. I volunteer really pushing. I help out certain. I guess might be a fun meeting.
That was county administrator. For Lynn, that's Lynn. That's Lynn's people. That's Matt. That's Mike.
Oh, Matt's here?
Yeah, that's who I was talking to.
This is not a planning commission meeting.
No.
Okay, I'm gonna get us started and I'll.
Okay.
We want to recruit a couple of them in private businesses.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Wow. Okay. Thank you all for joining us for Springfield City Club this afternoon. I'm Paige Walters. I have the pleasure of serving as our board president for Springfield City Club. And it is our honor to bring twice monthly programming around impactful civic issues facing the Springfield community. And right now it is election and ballot season. So we've been really excited to bring some great programming to you, our members, around a lot of things that are going to show up on your November ballot. And today is no exception. Today we're talking about a county measure around redistricting commission. So Lane County voters are going to be voting on 4 proposed amendments to the Lane County Charter during the November 5th general election. And we're joined by 2 individuals today who are going to be speaking to one of those proposals, and that is measure 20-362 regarding the county redistricting. So the proposed amendment is going to require forming a citizens redistricting commission to develop board of commissioner districts. The commission would develop districts in coordination with the national decennial census and districts for the 2026 general election. The Citizens Redistricting Commission would consist of 15 members plus alternates. The new commission would have the power to adopt the final district maps instead of the Board of Commissioners. And so you're going to learn a lot more about that today. That's just a snapshot. And we've got a couple of experts in the room to talk to that. Presenting in support of the proposal is Commissioner Ryan Ceniga, West Lane County Commissioner. And presenting in opposition to the proposal is Terry Parker, President of Lane County League of Women Voters. Thank you both for joining us today. We're just to give you a snapshot of the format here today. Our proponent is going to speak first, followed by our opponent. Each of them will have 10 to 15 minutes to present on the issue and give their perspective. And then you'll each have an additional 5 minutes for a follow-up. And then we're going to open it up here to the audience for Q&A. Just a quick thank you to our online audience for joining. As always, Lynn Goodwin, our board secretary, is running our tech today. And if you have any questions and you're in the online audience, please raise your virtual hand or type that question in the chat. Lynn's going to go ahead and prompt you again later in the program, but he will raise his hand for you and ask that question in the room. So I'm going to read both the bios before I call up Commissioner Ceniga, but I'll start with Commissioner Ceniga's bio. Ryan Ceniga is a lifelong Oregon resident. He describes himself as a blue-collar dad with deep roots in West Lane County. Ryan lives in the Junction City area with 2 kids in the public school system where he serves on the Junction City School Board. He has always given back to his community with his involvement in service groups, including the Junction City Lions Club, the Junction City Athletics Board, and as a coach for his kids' sports through the years. And then here today in opposition is Terry Parker. And Terry is the president of the League of Women Voters of Lane County, a nonpartisan grassroots organization doing hands-on work to safeguard democracy through voter registration, education, and advocacy. When not navigating for the league, Terry sails the waters of British Columbia and is an avid knitter. She retired as Lane Transit District's accessible service manager in 2013. And I know she just got back from a big sailing trip around Columbia, so we're very excited that this timing worked out and you were here to join us. So
Bobbing and weaving a bit.
Still got our sea legs. And with that, Commissioner Ceniga, I'll have you come up and start your presentation.
Well, I'll bring my glasses up because I'm at the, sometimes my eyes work, sometimes they don't at this stage. So it sounds like this is new to quite a few people, and I'm just gonna give you a rundown, and then hopefully that'll lead to some questions later on how this works. You look in, there's gonna be a pool of applicants for this redistricting, and this is called an impartial redistricting committee. There's a lot of different acronyms they use, so there'll be applicants that apply for this position. And we'll accept all those applicants, and those applicants, depending on what district they are in, will get put into their districts accordingly. Then the commissioners come in and look at these applicants for each district. They go through, they can look at the applications, read bios, and then if they choose to, they can do an interview if needed. So when that's done, the commissioners will go through and pick 2 people from each district. So I will get to pick 2 people from every district, South Eugene, North Eugene, etc. Now, those 2 that we pick from each district will go into these pots. So all 5 commissioners will have 2 picks in every single district. Now, the charter review committee went through, and originally we were gonna have our county clerk draw the names for each district, 3 people from each district. Now, she's got a heavy workload. She asked that we move that to someone else, so at this time, it's looking like probably the chief of staff for the county. We'll go through District 1. She'll pick 3 names from District 1, 2, 3 names from District 2, so on and so forth. Till we get to our 15-person committee. That 15-person committee will follow the guidelines for the rough districts that they have been laid out. You know, West Lane has got a definition, mostly West Lane, rural, so on and so forth. Beltline divide. But that leaves room for leeway, but also keeps the districts as a whole. When they come up with that final map, they agree, take a vote on that final map. That will be the map that the districts are drawn by. And the beauty of this layout is it's as close to impartial as you can get. This proposal came to us, I think March-ish was when I first saw it. And when you're, as a lot of you know here, when you're busy, you get good at scanning, right? Quick reading, skimming. And I was kind of reading through this. I'm like, well, we were getting a couple of proposals for different ballots. Like, well, that's kind of interesting. I'm going to put this in my read later list. And I get a couple more minutes and I go back to that and start reading. Well, that's interesting because I know our charter review committee was also working on a redistricting ballot measure and amendment. So as I started to read and the more research I did, this impartial redistricting committee it's very popular. There's 11 different states that are currently using it. There's multiple municipalities, Seattle, Austin, Minneapolis. You know, so big cities are starting to use this system to take the tension off redistricting. We all know how contentious redistricting currently is. No matter what, it was always gerrymandered. And that's gerrymandered is just basically gerrymandered, as many times as I've heard it in the last couple months, is a term for someone that didn't get their way. And this is a way to have these maps drawn up as impartial as you can get. And it's called people picking the politicians, not the politicians picking the people. I think that's a huge statement when you sit there and listen to it. Because you should be able to pick which community you're in. The politician shouldn't be able to draw lines and navigate 700 people here, 1,400 people here. There should be lines that keep communities together. And I fully believe that. This IRC has been moved along by two commissioners. Both of us are not affiliated. Pat Farr and I have been the motors behind this. He's as moderate as you can get. I'm as moderate as you can get. I've been not affiliated since I was 18. This isn't something I chose later. I looked at my dad and I looked at my grandpa. They both had great points. And I chose the middle. That's it. I think that's where you should be. And I'll tell you, there's been times that I've been very happy to be in the middle. So I don't like to eat what either side's doing. So that really shows that this isn't pushed by political backing. If you read some of the voter pamphlet statements, they're simply not true. They say, one of them says 3 right-wing commissioners. Anybody that knows me knows that's not true. Yes, I did grow up in a small town, and yes, I am on school board and sports. But I've always been down the middle. What's correct? What's the right thing to do? I got some notes here from someone that was on the last redistricting committee, and she wanted to be here tonight, but her kid's moving into her dorm, and that's a big day, so she wanted to be there. But she wrote out, she was so passionate about it, she wrote out 4 pages of notes. And I hope she doesn't watch this, because I'm not gonna read all 4 pages to you. But, this is how much of an impact the last redistricting made on her. How contentious it was, how uncomfortable it was, because it was a politically driven commission. Everybody picked there was picked by a political person. At that point, when you're in that room, you feel like you're working for that political person. You're trying to do the best you can for them versus being drawn out of a hat and doing what's best for your community. So Jennifer wrote, like I said, I'm just gonna read real quick and short paragraph. My experience with the redistricting process in 21 is it was all political. I didn't really know what I was doing. But when I got there, it was definitely political people who did. People were involved who now we know have received significant financial support through the years from the commissioners who appointed them. A lot of information about the people involved in the process has come out after the fact. It was during the COVID hangover period. All the redistricting conversations were online. And in that period of time where all kinds of behind closed doors things happened and transparency was at a minimum because you couldn't really look people in the eye. It felt uncomfortable and out of control. Suddenly, these fully developed maps were presented by people who definitely had people on boards knowing what they do. She goes on and on here. But I don't want that to happen again. And I think we can do better than that. And this ballot, this isn't a code change. Right now, Board of County Commissioners could come in on a 3-2 and say, we want to draw new maps and this is how you're going to do it. That's not how it should be. You shouldn't get to change the maps because there's a different route that's in charge. This will take all of that out of it. And this is why we have to vote on this. And I was one of the ones that put this to the people, like, let the people decide. I think it's a great idea, but do you think it's a great idea? So this is the chart. When this gets put in, this is how it is until it's voted out. It's very serious, and I'm taking it very serious. And I think it's the right thing to do for the people of Wayne County. And the people that get put on these committees. They're there to do the best job they can for their community, not for the politician. So I don't know if that's something else, but I can't do 15.
Thank you, Commissioner Ceniga. You'll have another 5 after Terry, so I'll be back up. Terry, you have 10 to 15 minutes. Okay.
That's a long time. A bit shorter. Not a lot to say, I guess. My name is Terry Parker. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Blaine County. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the league, we're a nonpartisan grassroots organization working to protect and expand voting rights and ensure everyone is represented in our democracy. We empower voters and defend democracy through advocacy, education, and litigation at the local, state, and national levels. And I'm here today to tell you, while the league wholeheartedly supports the establishment of an independent redistricting commission within the Lane County Charter, that we are strongly opposed to measure 2362. A truly independent redistricting commission takes the process of redistricting out of the hands of politicians and into the hands of voters, making the process much more transparent, fair, and inclusive. And I want to make sure that I heard it right, that this impartial redistricting is that the first two people from each district are chosen by commissioners. Is that correct in this new in your proposal? So you can answer that question later. Measure 2362 does not represent, in our mind, an independent redistricting commission. And the process for bringing this measure to Lane County voters was certainly not transparent. Measures been placed on the November ballot by 3 county commissioners without a public hearing or comment period, against the recommendation of their own charter review committee and the elections official. It is expensive, an estimated $75,000, unnecessary, and it's out of sync with the census data cycle needed to do redistricting right. The single most important question you should be asking yourself today is why? What's the motivation behind Measure 2362 that would allow for the adoption of district boundaries to be readopted by at least 6 months prior to the 2026 general election? That sentence alone is the rub. That's the catch. The measure mandates redistricting county commissioner maps in 2025 in time for the 2026 general election. Just 3 years after we went through the process with no new census data available. If that raises some eyebrows, it should. Why now? And why was this inserted as a change to the Charter Review Committee's recommendation without public review? Redistricting is a process of redrawing the lines that define political district, not just for the county. Lane Community College, school districts. This is typically occurs after the completion of the federal census every 10 years. Redistricting should be more accurately reflect the changes in population and interests of constituents. The Board of County Commissioners has determined by a 3-2 vote that it is in the public interest and benefit to offer voters the option to approve an amendment to the Lane County Charter, which is like our Constitution, right? That would enshrine in the charter a Citizens Redistricting Commission. Okay, empowered to prepare a redistricting plan for the 2026 general election and thereafter in conjunction with the release of federal census data. So we get to redo it now, but we're okay with doing it every 10 years after that. What is it about the 2026 general election that 3 of your 5 commissioners cannot wait until 2030 census data is available? Before I go more into the why, the league has taken this position. Let me step back and give you a little history into our how the league comes to this position. You're likely more familiar with our activities around voter education, voter registration. That's where people see us most of the time. But we're also advocates, and we do so within the framework of research, fact-finding, examining multiple sides of an issue, and open discussion. We sit in on a lot of meetings. We are there. We're not necessarily nimble, I have to tell you, but we do our homework. And we use a consensus process to establish a position that the league can stand by and support. And meaning we're committed to ensuring that maps are drawn fairly and accurately, with all voices considered and equitably represented. This can only be achieved with voices from all communities in an open and transparent process. So equal representation is the cornerstone of redistricting. Every 10 years, following the completion of the US Census, it occurs at every level of government. And at the best of our ability, the ideal of one person, one vote for our elections is paramount. It's not the only consideration. So if you take the census data from 2020 and you divide it by 5, we have 5 districts. Essentially, each of those districts is gonna have essentially 76,500 people. That doesn't change when you redo it for 2025. The data is the same, the numbers are the same. In the most recent redistricting process completed in 2021, based on the 2020 census, for the first time, the Lane County Independent Redistricting Committee was empowered to do this work instead of it being done by the county commissioners themselves. Yes, we were in a pandemic. Yes, the census data was late. Yes, the timeline got crunched. But for the first time, you had a committee. Some of those people were appointed by commissioners, granted. But that was the first time that we actually, after advocating for over 10 years to get a committee to do the work, they did the work. It wasn't easy. We sat in on many of those meetings, so we were there. Lane County staff also put in time. The committee put in lots of effort. There was mapping expertise. The Council of Governments did the mapping and legal review. Ka-ching. That all adds up to time and money and effort. The resulting district boundary maps, they're in use today. We used them in the last election, have never been challenged. Sure, there was a bit of grumbling. There always is. But these district boundaries have never been appealed to either the Secretary of State or in court. And there's no documentation that the maps are in any way biased. The next opportunity for applying new census data for this purpose will be 2031. We can wait. So why would we ask taxpayers to foot the bill for redoing the same process in 2025? At least 6 months prior to the 2026 general election, using the same numbers. You cut the pie 5 ways, right? We've said that. Let me repeat. There's no new data. You have to ask yourself how it changes to district boundaries off cycle before the 2030 census numbers are available actually benefit the public. Who might benefit from changing a voting district boundary before an election? They might not. Again, crunching the same numbers, wasting money that the county cannot afford. On top of that, the Lane County Elections Office, who are already under considerable pressure, says the timeline would pose a significant risk to Lane County elections. Surely there are more pressing issues, priorities. Paying to rearrange maps of commissioner districts is definitely not a priority for residents who might be more worried about sheriff response time or drug abuse, or maybe just want to know that their taxpayer money is supporting the actual work of county government. Commissioners themselves will tell you what their priorities are. Go to their websites, listen to the deliberations. The beauty of this is that you don't have to listen to me. You can go on the Lane County website and listen to the deliberations of the county on this issue starting in June, July, and August, and just listen to what they had to say and listen to what the elections official had to say and what their own review committee had to say, who did amazing work, by the way. That work was presented in October of 2023. 2023, not March of 2024. Measure 2362 comes to you against the advice of the Lane County Charter Review Committee, the Lane County Elections Office. Again, check it out. I could go on. The league is extremely disappointed, having to spend time unnecessarily on a bad process, waste money, and could go to money that could go to better, more immediate needs. It's discouraging to say the least. I want to thank the Springfield City Club for offering a forum for voicing these different takes on the measure. Democracy is strengthened by this kind of discourse. And I want you to know that the League of Women Voters will be there. We will continue to sit in and watch and keep local government accountable. I yield the floor.
Thanks, Siri. To say this wasn't opened up to the public is not a true statement. We actually added 2 more public sessions for people to talk about this possible ballot. We spent 8 hours with our charter review committee, and I'd like to give them a hand because they did an absolute amazing job. Jeremy Shear was one of them. Um, so 8 hours, and they came up with some great, addendums they would like to add to it, change to it, remove to it. And we took into consideration everything the charter review committee said, except one. And that was to redistrict in 2026. And there's plenty of nefarious talk about this, and it's simple. If this is your constitution, which is what charter is, and it gets voted in, yes, and it should be implemented, it should be used. If you've got a tool in your toolbox, it can fix a problem. Why not use that tool as soon as it's available? It's a simple, it's a simple response. And I keep hearing that it's expensive. I can ask Lynn Goodwin what he's making to be here. You know, these committees are people that are volunteering. We're not paying them. Yes, there's some staff time. But it's not expensive to redistrict. It's really not. Now, put it on the ballot, it's no different than what the Charter Review Committee came up with. They came up with a good possible ballot, and we chose this one. Morgan Monroe, she was the chair of it, and she did a great job. And she understood when I was in those Charter Review Committee meetings that there are things about this that were different, that she actually liked better than what they came up with. There was stuff they hadn't seen before. And I'll say that the county commissioners had this same proposal in 2020. This isn't new. It got sent to me later on. So I didn't learn about it until it came to us as the Charter Review Committee brought it back up. And do commissioners pick the first two people? Yes. I mean, they should be vetted. Do we pick them and guarantee that they're gonna be on the IRC? No. They're randomly drawn. That's the beauty of it. You know, if you look through, I know you guys don't have this right there, but the criteria for this, which is part of the beauty of it, is you've got to be a registered voter in Lane County to fit in this applicant pool. Not a candidate or holder of federal, state, county, or certain local offices, city council, etc. Not a registered lobbyist, paid congressional, legislative, or county employee. Not a political strategist, party official. So we're removing that group of people from this applicant pool. And I think that's great. You know, just like I was talking about politics earlier. All the way over here, all the way over here. I don't want a political consultant drawing district lines. I don't want someone that's never voted drawing district lines. You've got to have skin in the game. That's the whole beauty of this. I don't want to get into the redistricting in 2021 in depth, but there was a map. The map met all the criteria. They re-implemented the 21 map. When the census came out, the 21 map still worked. But there was a redistricting anyhow. The 21 map is still within the plus or minus 5%. Yes, it was, Terry. Currently, this should hit home here in Springfield. All 5 county commissioners could be from Eugene. All 5 county commissioners could be the Eugene City Council. Yeah, I know. All 5. That to me is a concern. I live in Junction City. That's Junction City, Florence, Mapleton, Elmira. They're not North Eugene, they're not South Eugene. That's okay, but we are different. I don't think all 5 county commissioners should be able to be from Eugene. Terry's made it very clear that the Lane County League of Women Voters don't support this. The people, not politicians, the League of Women Voters do support it. And that's what this came from. That's where this particular, I've got a paper right there that says, along with NAACP, along with the Farm Bureau. I mean, it's a complete vast array of people that support this redistricting. Yeah, that's what I got. I really do want to double down that the charter review committee did an absolutely great job. They didn't, I mean, the fact that they came back in and put those 8 hours in and really went through this thing with a fine tooth comb and with our county council. I mean, it was a great job that they came together. The reason they were on such a tight timeline was unfortunate because when this got brought up, it got held up in our county council office. And until they released it, then the charter review committee could go through, and that was weeks and weeks. So had they had more time, I think they would have liked it, so they didn't have to meet twice a week to do it. But they certainly put in the work. Just want to thank you for that. So thank you.
So I'm on a first name basis with Norman Turrell, who is the head of the People Not Politicians of the League of Independent Voters of Oregon. And I asked Norm about this copy. So they copied language that was in one of the People Not Politicians statewide proposals that they will be putting to the state for doing independent redistricting on a statewide basis. All they did is copy the language and put it into theirs. A proposal for a statewide population, not for Lane County. And Norm agreed with me that he could not review that or support it without looking at the entire package. You don't cherry pick part of a proposal and then say that the League of Women Voters of Oregon supports it. You just copy their language. So it is incorrect. The state of Oregon does not. In fact, in the League of Women Voters, the state of Oregon, the Oregon League would not come in and actually intervene in a Lane County proposal unless we asked for their assistance. In the same way, they asked for our assistance to assist them with their statewide proposals. So if you go back to the report from the 2021 redistricting committee, it's a good report and you should read it, and it's available. They provided 3 different maps for the county commission to choose from. The commissioners in December 21, I just went through and listened to that again. After having sat through it the first time, the commissioners chose a map. That map has never been, they had a choice of 3. They chose one, and it was the one that committee actually preferred. It was a 3-2 vote, so obviously not everybody, it wasn't a unanimous vote. There was no redistricting, so the issue in 2021 was that the census data was late. We couldn't do redistricting in 2021 in the timeline because the information wasn't available. So the county commissioners had to vote to retain the current maps. They didn't change the maps, they didn't apply new numbers. So you had maps for 11 years. Usually you only have them for 10, you had them for 11. Then when the census information became available, the Independent Redistricting Committee made their decision, went to the commission in December of 2021, just squeaking in under the wire there for the timeline, and made their decision. And so those are the maps that are in place today. They will be in place for 9 years because the others were in place for 11. There was no redistricting with new numbers. Don't be, that is not true. All 5 county commissioners, Pat Farr has said this to me so many times. All 5 commissioners could be from Eugene. This is about math. You have a certain number of population in 2020. You have to divide the districts by 76,500 people 5 ways. The city of Eugene has, don't count me on the numbers because they're coming off the top of my head, 61,000 people. If you only put the city of Eugene district into 61,000 people, somebody else has 80,000 or 85,000 in their district. That is not one person, one vote representation. You need to make sure that there is an equalization of votes. So the one person, one vote representation stands. So how do you choose those other 14,000 people that are included in the Springfield district? That's what the independent redistrict maps were about. They gave you 3 maps to choose. The commissioners chose those maps. Those maps have been in use during the last election. 6 of the 15 people that will be appointed to the Independent Redistricting Committee or political appointees by elected officials. That's step one in the process.
Yeah.
6 to the 15, and then they get to pick the rest. So to us, to the league, that is not an independent redistricting. It's not truly independent of elected officials being too close to the process. We need a more arm's length process. And with that, I'll close.
Thank you both so much, sharing your perspective and laying out a little bit more information on what the measure actually is. We're going to turn it over to Q&A. We didn't want to put a very prescriptive time on your responses, but we are just going to ask you to keep it fairly brief, so that we can move through a few different questions here. I'm going to help facilitate questions, but we only have one microphone. So what I'm going to do is get this podium out of the way and have you both come up here and share that. And we'll stand off to the side. And while I do that, you guys can think about your questions and raise your hand. You guys want to come up?
Who goes first?
I'll have Terry start the Q&A since you started. But each of you will have a chance to respond. We're not doing rebuttals, but we can switch back and forth. But you guys both want to come on. Okay. All right, don't say it.
So is somebody going to get the question?
Yeah, so I will start with CJ and then Jeremy will come to you.
So if the criteria for the map is based on census data, which has not changed. Ryan, you stated in your statement, you're trying to fix a problem. What problem are you trying to fix if the data hasn't changed and the maps were good forever?
This is a question for Ryan.
Brian,
Okay, I am gonna also, can you guys stand a little bit farther that way so that our Zoom audience can see you?
Okay,
Sorry.
great.
All right, Ryan is barely in the Zoom frame, so
Which way?
I'm gonna have Terry, who's on the other side of the podium. And then I think, then is that good? Perfect.
I believe is what I said is if there is a problem and you have a tool. So if the voters vote this in, then they would think there was a problem. I don't want to get into current districts and what this redistricting looks like. Because this is about a process. We're here for a process. We're not here to pick district lines. But if I was going to give an example, I would say there was a fire over off Green Hill Road. Okay, the big, good sized fire. Staff called me, lets me know, hey, there's a fire in your district. Here's our fairgrounds, get a hold of Corey Bueller, we're gonna start figuring out where to put animals, so on and so forth, because it was west and it was heading for different farms. I've got people calling me and I'm calling people that I know live out there because there's a fire out in that district. Well, after 3 hours of coordinating, getting people to the fairgrounds, getting animals out of the way, so on and so forth, the dust settles, I start to relax, I find out that fire is not in my district. That fire is now in Commissioner Farr's district. Staff didn't know this, staff is calling me. And the people that live there didn't know that, because they live in West Lane, they assumed I am their rural West Lane commissioner. So I think the voters, when they see this, they are upset. I hear from people, who else is upset? My district goes all the way to Chambers Overpass. That's been Commissioner Farr's district for, 12, 11 years. So he's had that relationship with our RCO and all those neighbors for this long, and then those lines get moved. So we are allowed 5%, 10% variance in population. It doesn't have to be 1%. It doesn't. That's not a law. We can move the districts to have 2, maybe 3 that aren't in Eugene. It is possible.
so,
Are you a little confused? Can I help you with?
yeah, I'm confused, because I heard earlier that each district has to be approximately 75,000 people. And the census tract hasn't changed enough to equate 1 to 10%, so I still don't know what you're trying to fix.
So that is if the districts are within 1%, correct? They don't have to be within 1%. They don't have to have the exact same number for all districts. Is that-
And after one question. Go ahead.
Terry, is there anything you want to add?
The committee that did the work to establish the districts you have today used a 1% variance. It's like, it's the ideal. And so that's better than using 5 or 10%. And so what happens is that, again, because there is a small piece of Eugene in order to meet the population criteria. The probability, however, of every district which has this small piece of Eugene electing someone from Eugene is really quite remote. It's a red herring. That is not, it may be a potential, but it's not probable. And it's up to the voters to decide who they want to represent them. I do say, every time you have a map change, and one of the issues that the Charter Review Committee worked on is the designation of east, west, north, south no longer applies. It's confusing. So they said we should use district numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because as population has changed over time, you're not able to make those distributions, particularly when you have Oregon land use laws that concentrates population within metro areas. So part of it is just how we are as a county. We're as big as Connecticut, and you have to divide that piece of land by a population base.
Okay, Jeremy, I think you were next.
Just a little quick rebuttal to that since I went first.
We're not doing rebuttals, but if it comes up in another question, you can answer it then.
So, Barry, go first on this one.
Sure.
But this might be just,
Okay.
only you can have this.
It's like, what are we talking
Now, I have a couple questions, but I'll say the second one and see if we have more time. But one question is that could the county commissioners at this time reconvene the redistricting committee and come up with new district lines without having to go to charter?
Currently, yes. Currently, it's in code, which is, well, to answer your question, absolutely yes. We could go to and redistrict, draw new lines at any time you wanted to at this point. That's how it's wrote. It has to be at least every 10 years, which reads you could do it every 2 years if you wanted, every 4 years, every 5 years. Part of this charter review committee is to get it out of code, so it can't just be changed by a 3-2 vote. As you heard Terry say, the last maps were brought in on a 3-2 vote. And that's, you know, those are tough decisions when something like that comes up on a 3-2 vote. So if this was in the charter, it wouldn't be a vote. That's how it happens. Every 10 years every year that ends with a 1, we redistrict. Right now, we could redistrict at any time. Yes.
My turn. This measure was on a 3-2 vote.
Oh, are we rebuttaling?
Okay,
Don't I get to answer the question?
yes, it's time to answer the question too.
We get both to answer the question, right? That's
Yeah.
the rule.
We'll get to answer the question. If you directed at someone though, I don't mind if that person. Okay, so you guys are okay with that? I thought you raised your hand. You still have a question and then Tom will come to you.
No, I think it's been very.
Okay, Tom.
Okay, so I'm gonna see if I phrase this back, see if I understand it, and then ask the question, if that's all right. There's 5 county commissioners. Anybody who meets the criteria can apply in each of the 5 districts. The commissioner from each district is going to pick their top 3, their top 2, to put in a hat. That's 50, no, that's 10. Okay, so
I'll go over it real quick.
here, let me try to, there's 5 county commissioners. they're each gonna pick,
So they're each gonna pick 2 from every district.
okay, so now you're at 50. Right? And then the commissioner from each district, no, then somebody independent who has a clean hand. Is gonna reach
White
in,
glove.
is gonna reach into a hat for the 15 people. Now that doesn't add up either. So how many will there be to pick from within each district?
2 plus 10 in each one.
So then this person is gonna reach into the hat out of 10 people that have been put in there by all 5 county commissioners and pull out 3. So, okay, so now, so I think I got it. So
That's right.
So the question is, it's really more of a challenge. What would you say to convince me that random is better than intentional in our system? It could, because it seems to me like probability, right? You have to flip a penny 500 times to get 50-50. The 3 that come out of that hat could be representing one interest or another interest. What really makes it? Why is random better? Why is luck better than intentional?
Well, I guess, so the way it's currently set up is. Commissioner picks 1 person, right? Well, how they did it last time, commissioner picks 1 person. Then and that's just for that district, it just has their best interest for that district. Then that person is in charge of picking the other 4 for that committee. Or for that district, excuse me. So you get 1 person. If you get 1 person that's picking all the people in a row that think just like they do, you do that 3 times. I mean, it's a get like, the cards are stacked. Or if it's random, you might get a 50. I mean, it's better than a guaranteed not 50-50. And I looked and struggled with this for a while too. I mean, how are you gonna pull names out of it? How is that gonna make sense? And you start looking at the data. A political district line is 4 times more likely to be challenged than an IRC. That's a pretty strong statement alone right there. And the fact that, I just read last night that Portland is doing an IRC for their finance committee. I mean, it's just, I think these political lines have gotten so contentious that everybody's looking to try and take the guarantee that's gonna go this way out of it. And it's the program, it's really the way 11 states are currently doing it. It's the direction things are headed.
I'm gonna speak to this, not in the weeds, because there's supposition of there's all sorts of permutations that could happen. But here's the issue, the county charter serves as our governing framework for our county government, not like the constitution. This is really specific language. It doesn't belong in the charter, it belongs in code. And so if the commissioners had decided to say, we want to put an independent redistricting committee in the charter, that's what we support. You can put the details in code, and that allows you to improve upon the 2021 committee that had some issues. Exactly. It allows you to write the detail. It's much like when you have things that are in our state constitution that shouldn't be there, and then you have to go to a vote of the people to vote on the detail. It isn't really about the constitutionality. What we're saying is you need to remove the political direct implication in designating who is on the committee. You need more arm's length than we have now, and this proposal doesn't do it. Who's next?
Len, any online questions?
Not yet, but I have one.
Let me let Jeremy ask his question. And then we'll
Go
come
ahead.
back to you, Len.
So
the question that comes to my mind, as is for both of you, because you both have your own plans, is, we assume that, you know, just because it's independent, that everyone there is going to be virtuous and they're going to be, impartial and all this kind of thing. And that's not how politics works, whether you're elected or appointed. So it won't matter. So where are the checks and balances in both of your plans to assure that there is some impartiality or there isn't some, that something's, going against their lower nature, let's put it that way, or something. Did I make that question clear? I think
Yes or no?
you can figure it
You're
out.
looking for the accountability.
Accountability, yes,
Yeah.
thank you. How are they accountable?
Well, I invite you to really listen to the presentation by the Charter Review Committee to the board on October 11th, 2023. They presented their recommendations a year ago. This new proposal came in March because of some funny delay or something that's landed on somebody's desk. But if you look at their deliberations, and if you listen to the members of the committee stand up, Steve Coronacchia being one of them, and say, I didn't agree with everything in the committee. I'm a former county commissioner, I didn't agree. I sat in meetings where Steve didn't want to do anything. But what he said is, I felt heard, I felt respected. They talked to the chair of the committee as if she had given everybody a voice. And so you had these people in a room, I sat there, I listened to them, they argued. And then they presented it to, they didn't do it in a vacuum, it was open to the public. You really don't listen to me, go and listen to the committee's report to the commission, and then listen to how the commission responds to that report in the June, July, and August meetings. It's not about, you know, the league. What we're asking for is we want this independence. We've been fighting for it for a lot of time. We were moving in that direction, and now this is a step backwards.
So I think you were talking about the applicant pool,
Where,
the accountability for who's in the applicant pool.
being independent, wonderful, but they make a decision, we're stuck with it. I have no representation to decide where I get to be, where my political boundaries are. How are they held accountable if they did the same thing that we're saying that they did before, which is gerrymander? How do you stop it as a commissioner?
Well, I think both Terry and I's plan, that's kind of the point, is to take the commissioners out. And as a commissioner, that's tough to say, right? But is that the right thing to do? And I believe it is. You know, to put it in the hands of the people that are making the votes. They draw, I mean, West Lane is West Lane. West Lane doesn't want to be part of Eugene. And it's drawn out. West Lane will comprise mostly of this area. So the lines aren't gonna get extreme. I mean, they can't by direction of the code. But as far as accountability to the committee, I think that's kind of the nuanced idea of this committee is you're hoping and assuming that they're doing what's right for their people, for their communities. And that's why you're taking out the people that don't vote, because they probably whatever, I mean, they don't vote, and then you're taking out the elected officials and city council and political strategists and trying to get as much of that middle ground as possible.
Aren't there computer programs that do this better than other people? I mean, really.
There are stories around the state where people on independent commissions, Madras Oregon is one of them, where the people on the commission had to do their own mapping. They had no mapping expertise to help them. In ours, the Wayne Council of Governments, who has mapping expertise and actually has the census data and does the mapping for all sorts of districts. They were the support. The problem is, of course, is it's complicated. You have to do it by census blocks. There's just, it affects so many district lines. So yes, there is expertise and it should be applied. Because asking somebody to go sit down and draw a map is pretty difficult. You need to really understand. And it isn't just about population. It's about communities of interest. It's about, there are other criteria. And we're not making these criteria up. It's the law. It's in the law. So you need to meet the federal and state requirements for doing this redistricting. And it's not necessarily simple.
So, yeah. Go ahead, Lynn.
No, go ahead.
You want to answer that question? Ryan?
No, that was very well answered.
We have a question.
Alan, did you get a picture of that?
We have a question from Zoom. Why did the board majority not allow any public hearing so the community could review the measure and give feedback before putting it to a vote?
We did. There's hours of public comment. We must have had 18 League of Women voters at one of the meetings after this came out.
Not after, no, I'm sorry. When the vote was not about this particular one, that was earlier.
So this was put on the table and it didn't, there was public comment even after the charter review committee went through. We extended it another meeting when this got voted, so.
Yeah, we kind of bombed one of their meetings in terms of sending a bunch of people in, just to remind commissioners that we're in the room and this is our interest. But this proposal by Mr. Long and I believe his lawyer came up late in the process. And it was not part of the recommendation of the Independent Review Committee. So again, the maps were never appealed. The way people appeal maps is they sue or you write to the Secretary of State. Mr. Long never did that. Nobody on the commission ever did that. So the maps that we have in 2021 never have had an appeal. They've never been shown as being biased. So there is a process to complain about a map. It just hasn't happened on those maps. And so to redo those maps set without any kind of an appeal or complaint just is kind of suspicious right before the 2026 election. And upsetting.
Len?
Now I have a question. Forgive me for being dumb as a post, but I'm going back to Tom's question and I want to see if I understand it. Let's say West Lane District. The original process is that commissioners from each of the 5 districts will select 2 names from West Lane, make up 10, and then each of South Lane will select, or each will select 2 from each of the 5 districts for South Lane, and that's how you get to 50?
Correct.
And then someone pulls it out of a hat.
Yeah.
Thank you.
3 from each district. Yeah. You got it, man. Give yourself credit.
Any other questions? And I don't have my phone with me, Len, so we can keep me on.
We have no more questions on Zoom at this point.
Okay, how are we doing on time?
We got 2 minutes. They
Okay.
can make some closing statements if they
You
want.
each get a minute here to wrap up your thoughts and.
All right, well, thanks for having us. Thanks for coming. You guys really, you show up here and you're listening, you're caring. You're doing the right thing. Look through it. I think it's a great ballot. There's nothing nefarious here. It has potential to set Lane County in a path with good districts that nobody can argue with because it was done by people, not the politicians. Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate that mid-census redistricting is highly unusual and occurs only if approved maps are challenged because of a perceived bias. The commission majority never appealed these maps to either the Secretary of State or in court, and there's no documented bias. The ordering of a specific cycle redistrict is a large and unnecessary expense from county funds, better used for county priorities. And the county charter serves as a governing framework. And this specific language does not serve us well. It will be obsolete almost immediately.
Thank you both for being here. Can we give them a round of applause? Informed voting is so important, and that's why we really strive to bring you guys programs leading up to the election that are gonna be on your ballot. Next, City Club meeting October 3rd, we are going to be talking about Measure 118. We're actually, because we couldn't get the big room here, we're gonna be over at the Chamber of Commerce again. We'll remind you of that in your emails, but we will be reviewing both the proponents and opponents side of that measure as well. And if you want, go home, sleep on this and wake up with more questions. I know that Eugene City Club is also covering this issue tomorrow with their program, and Terry, I think you'll be there.
I'm just a small piece of that program. You'll be hearing from other voices, and I think that that's really important. Again, go to the resource, do your research. You guys are awesome, because this is really what democracy is about, right?
Yeah, stay informed. The county's got good information up on their website. Sheila done a lot of good work. So thank you guys for being here today, and we'll see you next time.